Good day, everyone. My name is Harold J. Ines, DHRT Section B. This subject is GE 103 Readings in Philippine History. My presentation is Topic 3, Lesson 4, Cry of Balintawak and Pugadlawin. The Cry of Balintawak and Pugadlawin. The Cry of Balintawak was the beginning of the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish Empire. At the close of August 1896, members of the Katipunan Secret Society, led by Andres Bonifacio, rose up in revolt somewhere in an area referred to as Caloocan, wider than the jurisdiction of present-day Caloocan, which may have overlapped into present-day Quezon City. In August 1896, also in the city of Pugadlawin in Balintawak, now part of Quezon City, the Katipuneras, which led by Andres Bonifacio, rose up in revolt by tearing up their cedulas, which became a sign of enslavement of the Filipinos. This event, called the Cry of Pugadlawin, officially regarded as the start of Philippine Revolution against Spain with the use of violence and arms. Originally, the term cry referred to the first clash between the Katipuneros and the civil guards, Guardia Civil. The cry could also refer to the tearing up of community tax certificates in defiance of their allegiance to Spain. The inscriptions of Viva la Independencia Filipina can also be referred as term for the cry. This was literally accompanied by patriotic shouts. Because of competing accounts and ambiguity of the place where this event took place, the exact date and place of the cry is in contention. From 1908 until 1963, the official stance was the cry occurred on August 26 in Balintawak. In 1963, the Philippine government declared a shift to August 23 in Pugadlawin, Quezon City. The Cry of Pugadlawin was an event that officially marked the start of Philippine Revolution against Spain. The revolt later grew in strength and spread to 8 provinces, including Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Pampanga, Tarlac, Laguna, Batangas, and Nueva Ecija, which were eventually represented by the 8 rays of the sun in the present Filipino flag. So, the Philippine Revolution against over 300 years of Spanish rule began with Andres Bonifacio, leader of the Katipunan, a secret revolutionary society that sought independence for the Philippines from Spanish colonial rule. Bonifacio and the Katipunan were then forced by the circumstances to take action. They had to attack or risk the annihilation of their organization. On August 26, Bonifacio assembled the leaders and hundreds of comrades in arms in the hills of Balintawak of north of Manila. In an emotion-laden ceremony, the fighters tore their residence certificates to symbolize the termination of their loyalty to Spain while shouting the battle cry, "Long live Philippine Independence." The event went down in Philippine history as the Cry of Balintawak and is regarded as the starting signal for Philippine Revolution. Today, a monument marks this site which shows a Philippine peasant swinging the bolo, the national variation of the machete. The next day, Bonifacio issued the call for a general revolt in the whole country. The first encounter between the revolutionaries and the Spanish troops was staged in San Juan del Monte, today a suburb of Manila. Faced with force much superior than theirs, Bonifacio had to retreat, but the fire of the revolution could no longer be controlled. One city after the other rose in revolt under the flag of the Katipunan, which was actually a red flag with KKK, the initials of the organization. After a few days, the center of the revolution shifted to Cavite, where 24 years later, the mutiny, which ended with the execution of 3 innocent priests, broke out. In Cavite, however, the uprising was led by Emilio Aguinaldo, a man who would become the symbol of the successful revolution and the establishment of Philippine Republic. 8 years younger than Rizal and a son of middle-class peasant, Aguinaldo was not able to finish his education. He had to support the family by farming and retail trade. After the death of his father, Aguinaldo joined the Katipunan in 1894 and a year later became the mayor of his hometown like his father before him. Within a short period of time, Aguinaldo turned out to be a military genius. He was able to defeat the Spanish troops decisively in several battles. Several events occurred to strengthen the unity of the Filipino people and brought a thirst for independence. These include the Cavite Mutiny of 1872, martyrdom of the Gomborza, propaganda movements, and different peaceful campaigns for reforms. Dr. Rizal's exile in Dapitan, and the foundation and the discovery of the KKK or Katastasang Kagalang-galangang Katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan. The cry of rebellion in Pugadlawin marked the beginning of Philippine Revolution in 1896, which ultimately led to Philippine independence in 1898. After Bonifacio's death on May 10, 1897 in Maragondon, Cavite, General Emilio Aguinaldo continued the revolution. He declared the independence of the country from Spain on June 12, 1898 at Kawit, Cavite. So, momentous events swept the Spanish colonies in the late 19th century, including the Philippines. Journalists of the time referred to the phrase El Grito de Rebellion, or what we call the Cry of Rebellion. It is to mark the start of these identifying the places where the Cry of Rebellion happened. In the Philippines, this happened in revolutionary events on August 1896 on northeast of Manila, where they declared rebellion against the Spanish colonial government. These events are important markers in the history of colonies that struggled for their independence against their colonizers. The controversy regarding these events stems from the identification of the date and place where the cry happened. Prominent Filipino historian Teodoro Agoncillo emphasizes the events when Bonifacio tore the cedula or tax receipt before the Katipuneros, who also did the same. And some of the writers identified the first military event with the Spaniards as the moment of the cry, for which Emilio Aguinaldo commissioned an hymno de Balintawak. It is to inspire the renewed struggle after the Pact of Biak na Bato failed to do. A monument to the heroes of 1896 was erected in what is now the intersection of Epifano de los Santos Avenue or EDSA and Andres Bonifacio Drive North Diversion Road. And from then on until 1962, the cry of Balintawak was celebrated every 26th of August. The site of monument was chosen for an unknown reason. So these are the different dates and places of the cry. Various accounts of the cry give different dates and places. So a Guardia Civil, Lieutenant Olegario Diaz, identified the cry that happened or to have happened in Balintawak on 25th of August 1896. And Teodoro Calao, the prominent Filipino historian, marks the place to be in Kangkong, Balintawak on the last week of August 1896. And Santiago Alvarez, who is a Katipunero and also the son of Mariano Alvarez, leader of Magdiwang faction in Cavite, put the cry in Bahay Toro in Quezon City on 24 August 1896. Pio Valenzuela, known Katipunero and privy to many events concerning the Katipunan, stated that cry happened in Pugadlawin on 23 August 1896. And Gregorio Zaide, an historian, identified the cry to have happened in Balintawak on August 26, 1896, while Teodoro Agoncillo put it to Pugadlawin on 23 August 1896. So according to statements by Pio Valenzuela, research by historians Milagros Guerrero, Emmanuel Encarnacion, and Ramon Villegas, claimed that the event took place in Tandang Sora's barn in Golod, Barangay Banlat, Quezon City on 24 of August 1896. So this is according to Guillermo Masangkay. According to him, On August 26, a big meeting was held in Balintawak at the house of Apolonio Samson, then cabeza of that barrio of Caloocan. Among those who attended were Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, Aguedo del Rosario, Thomas Remigio, Bricio Pantas, Teodoro Plata, Pio Valenzuela, Enrique Pacheco, and Francisco Carrion. So these are the people who attended the meeting in Balintawak. So they were all leaders of the Katipunan, and some of it composed of board of directors of the organization. Also, there were delegates from Bulacan, Cabanatuan, Cavite, and Marang who were present on that meeting. So, according to Guillermo Masangkay, at about 9 o'clock of August 26, the meeting was opened with Andres Bonifacio presiding and Emilio Jacinto acting as the secretary of Andres Bonifacio. So the purpose of the meeting was to discuss when the uprising was to take place. On the other hand, Teodoro Plata, Bricio Pantas, and Pio Valenzuela opposed to Andres Bonifacio to start the revolution too early. Andres Bonifacio, sensing that he would lose in the discussion, so he decided to left the session hall and to talk to the people who were waiting outside for the result of the meeting of the leaders. So Andres Bonifacio told the people that the leaders were arguing against starting the revolution too early, and he appealed to them in a fairy speech in which he said, "You remember the fate of our countrymen who were shot in Bagong Bayan." Also, he said that should we return now to the towns, that the Spaniards will only shoot us. He said that their organization has been discovered and they were all marked men. So if they don't start the uprising, the Spaniards will get them anyways. So after Andres Bonifacio said those things to his people, the people shouted as one, "Revolt!" Bonifacio then asked the people to give a pledge that they were to revolt. He told them that the sign of slavery of the Filipinos were the cedula tax charge each citizen. If it is true that you are ready to revolt, Bonifacio said, I want to see you destroy your cedulas. It will be a sign that all of us have declared our severance from the Spaniards. So those things are what Bonifacio stated for them to start the revolution. So this is on the account of Pio Valenzuela. So according to him, the first place of refuge of Andres Bonifacio, Emilio Jacinto, Procopio Bonifacio, Teodoro Plata, Aguedo del Rosario, and Pio Valenzuela himself was Balintawak. The first five arriving there on August 19, and Pio Valenzuela arrived on August 20, 1896. The first place were some 500 members of the Katipunan who met on August 22, 1896. It was the house and yard of Apolonio Samson at Kangkong. Aside from the persons mentioned above, among those who were there were Bricio Pantas, Alejandro Santiago, Ramon Bernardo, Apolonio Samson, and the others. Here, views were only exchanged and no resolution were debated or adopted. It was at Pugadlawin, the house, storehouse, and yard of Juan Ramos, son of Melchora Aquino, where over 1,000 members of the Katipunan met and carried out considerable debate and discussion on August 23, 1896. The discussion was on whether or not the revolution against the Spanish government should be started on August 23, 1896. After the tumultuous meeting, many of those present tore their cedula certificates and shouted, "Long live the Philippines! Long live the Philippines!" So, from the eyewitness accounts presented, there is indeed marked disagreement among historical witnesses as to the place and time of the occurrence of the crime. So, using primary and secondary sources, 4 places have been identified. First is the Balintawak, Kangkong, Pugadlawin, and Bahay Toro, while the dates vary 23, 24, 25, or 26 of August 1896. Valenzuela's account should be read with caution. He once told a Spanish investigator that the cry happened in Balintawak on Wednesday, 26 of August 1896. Much later, he wrote in his memoirs of the resolution that it happened in Pugadlawin on 23 of August 1896. Such inconsistencies in accounts should always be seen as a red flag when dealing with primary sources. According to Guerrero, Encarnacion, and Villegas, all these places are in Balintawak, then part of Caloocan, now in Quezon. As for the dates, Bonifacio and his troops may have been moving from one place to another to avoid being located by the Spanish government, which could explain why there are several accounts of the cry. So let us all review the discussion I have discussed. So El Grito, the rebellion or cry of rebellion. It is to mark the start of identifying places to where it happened. On August 18, 96, Northeast Manila declared rebellion against the Spanish colonial government. Next is Teodoro Agoncillo, He is a prominent Filipino historian who emphasizes the events when Bonifacio tore the cedula or tax receipt before the Katipuneros who also did the same. Next is Emilio Aguinaldo commissioned an hymno di Balintawak to inspire the renewed struggle after the Pact of Biak na Bato failed. On August 26, a big meeting was held in Balintawak at the house of Apolonio Samson, then cabeza of that barrio of Caloocan. Using primary and secondary sources, 4 places have been identified. First is the Balintawak, next is Kangkong, next is Pugadlawin, and the 4th one is the Bahay Togo. While the dates vary from 23, 24, 25, or 26 of August 1896. Memoirs of the Revolution, Pio Valenzuela's account wrote that this happened on August 23, 1896. According to Guerrero, Encarnacion, and Villegas, all these places are in Balintawak. Then part of it are of Caloocan, now in Quezon. So, this is for my activity. Read the direction and answer the following question. Each question is composed of 5 points, a total of 15 items. So, thank you for watching and listening for what I have discussed today, and I hope you learned something from it. So, thank you, and until next time, bye.